You are now entering the Mysterious Historians podcast. Trombone, tuba, trumpet, known the world over as brass instruments, making sound from metal and wind, though not to be confused with wind instruments. So what makes brass brass? Today I sit down with Professor Gregory Staph to answer that pivotal question. But first, why aren't there more specialized signs? Sure, there are the ones for speed bumps and blind children, and sure, I can order one from a specialty sign store, but I shouldn't have to. In the coming election, make sure to vote yes on Prop B9 to get more sign diversity into the world. And now, on to our show. Professor Staph, it's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be here in this recording space with you.
Yes.
I feel really just right at home here.
When you suggested this topic, I thought, what a dynamic topic from a dynamic man.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you and I go way back.
Yes. We've known each other for years, since we were babes.
Since babes on the jazz scene, might I say, perhaps your audience doesn't know, but you were and are still quite a vocalist.
Well, I tried to think of what is the most jarring and alarming way to sing at people, to really activate their minds. Because most music is soothing and makes people feel calm or happy or at ease. And I really wanted to punch them in the face vocally, and I thought scat singing is that.
Scat, you were one of the great scatters. Your scat is some of the most robust that there is.
And wailing.
Your scat it's got a weight to it.
Which often is not associated with scat. I know it's supposed to be sort of a gentle, lilting singing that rides upon the waves or the crests of music. But I like to get in deep, almost so much so that it causes sort of stomach aches. Tell the audience, how did you get into brass instruments, our topic for today?
Brass. I have a deep passion for brass. I was a kindergartner when I first started playing, and there was a brief time where I could not play because I lost my front teeth. And for those of you who don't know, the main process by which brass instruments happen is the buzzing of the lips against a mouthpiece. And if you don't have the teeth to support the pressure on what you're pressing against the lips, you can't play. So there was a brief period in my childhood I couldn't play. There is a danger to brass that many parents don't want to subject their children to. But I come from a showbiz family, from a brass family. So there was pressure there to succeed, to be the best, and to get on stage and perform. And to make money.
And your family was ravaged by alcoholism, as most brass families are.
Yes, famously, my father, George Staph, who was a big name in the world of polka, which is primarily brass instruments combined with reed, say clarinet. He toured the world with his polka band called George Staph and the Polka Jackets, because they had jackets. And then he descended into sort of, as you said, the deep alcoholism, and they were primarily touring the county fair circuit. Anyway, long story longer. At the age of 5, I was on stage out there with the family members, and I was trying to get paid and make money for the fam. I had my own polka jacket, and we did the best we could.
Let's start at the beginning of... Well, there's so many base coats I think our audience needs to know in order to dive into the history of brass instruments. So first of all, what defines a brass instrument? Is it brass?
It is the brass, the metal brass. But there can be other elements, sometimes other metals.
So it's not brass.
Yes and no. The main body of the instrument may be a brass French horn, but perhaps the mouthpiece is made of silver. The best mouthpieces are Bach mouthpieces, silver 7C. That's what I use.
Oh. Now, the definition of a brass instrument can't just be that it's made of brass, because aren't saxophones made of brass, but they aren't brass instruments?
Correct. They're reed instruments. And
Okay.
they fall into the woodwind category because of, the rest of it, as you said, is made of brass, but because that mouthpiece is made of a piece of wood. And the sound is created by the vibration of the reed against the breast of the mouthpiece from blowing into it. Now, with brass instruments, the key function that makes it a brass instrument is the lips vibrating. And it sounds like this. Like you have hair on your lips, right? Get it off, get it off. I ate spicy food, my lips are on fire. That is the noise that you're making behind the mouthpiece. See, I made a small hole with my fingers. I'm blowing into, you can't see it because we're in audio, but I'm blowing into a hole, a funnel made with my hand. So that's changing the sound. The notes are created by the tubing and the length of the funnel that is extending from the mouthpiece.
So let's start. Mankind has just begun. It has figured out fire, it has figured out hunting, and now it wants to make music. What were the first brass instruments?
Well, the vibrational instruments, which are the origins of brass, there were, prior to using the metal, there were instruments that were long and tubular in many cultures. Egyptians, the Celts, India. We still to this day have one of the existing instruments that dates back centuries and centuries ago, still in its original form, and that is with the indigenous people of Australia, the didgeridoo. And that instrument, it's a long piece of tubular wood, and you still make that same vibrating with your lips up against that wood. You put your lips against the wood and you vibrate, and that's the famous sound that we know of the didgeridoo. And so those are some of the origins of the brass instrument. Now later in the Baroque period is when they started taking, you'll see in oldie-timey films depicting castle times, back when people lived in castles.
Castle times. I see we're using very technical terms.
And you'll hear the trumpets, and the trumpets will be one long tube with a bell at the end and then a flag hanging on it. And that instrument's only making one, maybe three different notes. Okay, it's doing the possibly just that one note and maybe an octave above it and perhaps a fifth in between that. So like a bugle is a similar modern day version of that. It doesn't have the ability to change. It can't go up the scale as we know it. It can only go at 1, 5, ones and the fifths above that. So, which is why in the army, in current military, you'll bugle boy, the boogie woogie bugle boy. It goes, so that's just 1, 5, 1. So those are the only options you can do on that. Now, say you go to the more advanced instruments like a French horn, which is my primary instrument. I also dabble in trumpets of all sizes and shapes.
Oh!
Baritones, euphoniums, trombones. Trombone came before any of the valved instruments like the trumpet.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yes.
You were listing horns, and now you're talking about valves?
Valves. So valves, it was the next iteration of brass instruments. So the baritone came after the sort of straight tubular old castle time trumpets that only play one note.
Walk me through it. We start with a one long tube and a dude who doesn't know how to do anything but make 3 or 2.5 notes.
Correct.
somebody somewhere, castle times or medieval times or the Middle Ages, or we could be more specific that it was about the 1450s, someone figures out that if we adjust the tubing,
it changes the note.
Explain this.
It goes up or it goes down. They bent that straight horn around into a curve, and then they added an apparatus that was able to add lengthen the tube and shorten the tube. And basically that's like a tube inside of another tube. Like when you're putting...
He's making a very vulgar gesture right now.
When you're putting, say, like I just got an expanding closet rack.
Okay.
Right? Or no, you've purchased some blinds from IKEA and you get a rod. Curtain rods are an example of it. It's a rod, a bigger rod with a smaller rod, and you're changing the length.
I don't need the visual anymore. You've
I can't say it without doing the visual.
Okay.
I apologize. I'll do it.
I don't mean to censor you. I know what you're doing.
I'll do it lower behind so you can't see it.
Thank you.
So now you're taking that rod inside of another rod and you're making it smooth by adding some grease, some animal fat to keep it smooth and keep it going. And that becomes the trombone.
Okay. Now, let's move into valves.
Now, people got frustrated with the trombone and they said, well, where exactly are the notes? I'm spending all this time just trying to remember, well, if I put it a king's foot away from my nose, it's that note. If I put it 2 king's foots away from me, it's another note. So now they were like, how do I accurately create different notes? So then valves came, and so they were able to add more and more length of the tubing to this instrument so that now it has a bigger range of low to high, but now we can accurately change the length of the tube by adding these valves that change the airflow with little holes in them so that it then changes the note.
You looked away for a while there. Are you doing okay?
I just have I was just thinking fondly of I have a tiny trumpet I got recently. It's the same amount of tubing as a regular trumpet, but it's short and thick and compact. And when I get my mouth on a short and thick, compact horn,
I love a long, thin, shiny horn. Really wrap my mouth around it. The thinner, the better.
I mean, I'm not one to turn away a long and thin one, but I appreciate the short and the thick, you know?
What about a small at one end and larger at the other?
Oh, a tapering off effect. I like those too, and you know, a lot of times they fit easier in your mouth. The embouchure.
If you put it in the right way.
Yes.
But if you're approaching it from the other side...
No, never approach from the wrong end. Have you ever smelled the bell end of a horned instrument?
My mother always said, never smell anyone else's bell end. Let's talk about trumpet, horn, brass instrument etiquette. People are spitting and breathing into these metal tubes. Do people switch horns? Is one person's horn theirs and no one else can touch it? What is the etiquette around horns?
There's an unspoken rule to never share. But if you're going to, is to try to use your own mouthpiece, and then you could swap out. But never, in sort of a version of never cross the streams. I think that's from Ghostbusters. You never want to inhale a brass instrument. You never want to go because there's spit and moisture that is inside. A lot of times it's fermenting, and it's sort of like a kombucha or an alcohol. Back when in high school, I remember getting a little drunk off of
your own essence
that's been fermenting in my instrument.
How often are you supposed to clean an instrument?
Frequently. But do people?
No, not high schoolers.
No.
Not high school?
No. They come with sort of a large pipe cleaner We think pipe cleaners are for crafts, but they were actually for cleaning pipes.
The pipe cleaning industry really conned us into thinking they thought not enough people have enough instruments. We've moved out of a time period where everyone has to play their own music in order to have music, so we've got to find another use for these things.
Yeah, so they moved it to the craft industry. It's similar to the canning industry now. We shouldn't have canned food. We have refrigerators. Canned food was for a time when we didn't have refrigeration and food was able to be kept fresh inside those cans. Now, Del Monte, Campbell's, they've got too much money invested in these canning factories. And so, they want to put fruit salad and chicken noodle soup and, halved pears.
I think this is a controversial opinion. Many people enjoy a pantry full of things that keep. We don't all live in a world with refrigerators that we can keep stocked regularly. Are you driving to and fro from the store every day?
True, people live off the grid. Some people want to have earthquake supplies or end of the world preppers. They want to have supplies. But really, there shouldn't be as many canned foods as there are. We have refrigeration and we've moved on. It's an old technology. The same way that we don't need theater anymore. We've got television.
You are a live performer who just said we don't need theater anymore.
I mean, theoretically we don't. I'm not saying I believe that.
Oh, you just saying things willy-nilly? You're incensing violence from a crowd? People might hear this and turn against live theater and cans. In fact, they might hurl cans at live theater.
We can only hope.
Oh, let's get back to the topic at hand. Signs, signs. Everywhere, signs. Blocking all the scenery, breaking my mind. Do this, don't do that. Can't you read the signs? Are you tired of signs bossing you around? If I wanted a piece of wood telling me what to do, I would have gotten married. Vote no on Prop B9. And now, back to our show. I'm very excited. Okay, presently, Gregory is assembling his tiny, what is this, tiny trumpet?
Technical term, tiny trumpet. Mm-hmm.
It's coming out of a velvet-lined box. It is roughly the size of a 9-month-old baby.
Now, we were speaking earlier about valves. You're hearing the sound of the valves being pressed. This, now we talked about it before, it is a silver trumpet, correct?
And yet still a brass instrument.
And why? Because it is silver-plated brass.
Was brass chosen because it was resistant to spittle? I know you're not a metallurgist, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that.
The blacksmithery of it all it's a bit outside of my pay grade. But I think brass was more of the people's metal. Things were, the valuable stuff was what? Copper, gold, silver.
Gold's too soft.
Copper, yeah, tin. Those things were the copper and the tin was being used for making swords, right? We got the Bronze Age.
You're not a sword expert.
I'm not a sword expert, but so I think it was the brass was being used for things like what? Candlesticks, creamers, the creamer container.
So many brass creamers.
At Thanksgiving, brass was also used for a small figurines of like a quail or a partridge.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bird.
I know.
Or like before Hummels were made out of ceramic, Hummel figurine.
Mm-hmm.
They were made out of, before
brass.
Ceramic, it was made out of brass.
So you know the origin of Hummel figurines being made out of brass, but not why brass instruments are made out of brass.
Correct. As I said, my main instrument is the French horn. I actually do have a new album that I've released.
Oh, what is its name?
It's called Let's French.
Sensual.
I find it to be. And it's a soundtrack for lovemaking.
There are not enough of those.
But it's also a Christmas album.
Oh, I make the most love at Christmas time, and I don't have enough music to go with my moans.
So if you have a membership to Spotify Music or an Apple Tunes.
Oh, I found it right now. It says Let's French by Gregory Staph, a Christmas lovemaking album.
Yes.
2024 to 2025. That you have to type all of that in order to find it.
Correct. But I do have in my collection of many, many brass instruments. This one just happened to be handy. So just a quick demonstration of how the brass works. So as I said, we vibrate our lips. And then if I take the mouthpiece up to it, here we go. Short and thin, right? Very short and thin.
Beautiful.
Up against the mouth. Now if I insert short and thin into a larger hole, it becomes this sound. That's about as low as it goes, and then it goes up high. So that's sort of the range of sound you'll get from it. Now I'll play you a little. Sorry. Wait, sorry, hold on. Wait, hold on. Where am I? Okay, there we go. Okay, ready? Here we go. Again, here's a little sample. Sing along.
Ba, ba, bum, ba. Beautiful. It's incredible that you can get so much sound out of something so small.
Sometimes the biggest surprise will come out of a tiny hole.
Are the brass people more violent by nature than the wind or the reed?
I would say so because there's so much power behind what we do. Breath support, embouchure, diaphragm. A woodwind player, very weak. Sure, they blow air, but there's no pressure behind it. You put trombone player versus a piccolo, it's no competition who's going to win in that fight.
What about a violinist or a drummer? What about a percussist?
Well, percussists are good with their hands, and they've got those sticks, and those they could come right. Just one drumstick to an ear, and you're down for the count. So I wouldn't want to get in a fight with. But it's not because they're more powerful than we are. It's just that they have actual weapons.
Rank a symphony for me. Tell me, where do the brass people lie in the hierarchy?
So at the bottom, we've got timpani players. No thanks. I don't want to have a conversation with one. Don't want to be one. Wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. Then comes flute section. Garbage. Then the reeds. Then we have the string instruments. Violin. Trash. Cello. Meh. But you know what I'm a big fan of? Viola. We don't talk enough about viola.
What is a viola?
It's like a big violin. But they don't read the same clef. We've got treble clef, bass clef. They read alto clef. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I can't even. An alto clef. I don't even know how to read that. Piano players, they read treble clef and bass clef at the same time. Next up, we've got the lower brass, tubas, sousaphones, trombones, euphoniums, and the like. And then we've got trumpet. And then so I'm going to insert one more reed instrument because I've got a lot of friends who are bassoon players. Love a bassoon. Oof. the vibration that you feel in your undercarriage when you're sitting next to a bassoon player. You could just feel it right there. Then we've got, did I say trumpets? So trumpet, bassoon. Then at the very top, in my opinion, French horn.
It's a coincidence that you play the French horn. Wouldn't a pianist or a violinist tend to be the people that solos are written for in classic?
Yes, but they're, what the kids would call basic.
I see.
You hear so much of it. It's, it's like having an ice cream sundae every day for dinner. It doesn't taste the same after a while. It just tastes, if every meal is a hot fudge sundae, then what you really crave is corn nuts. And I really think that French horns are the corn nuts of the orchestra. Ranch flavor. And the best part about French horns, you're not just playing it with your fingers on but they've got flat valves. They're not the round. They're just, you press them. They're different than the trumpet. But you're not just playing it with your hand there on your one hand and with your mouth. You're also really fingering it. You're really getting you're fisting it. You really got your fist up in there, and you're slightly adjusting the pitch with your cupped hand inside the larger hole of the French horn, and I think that's what makes it so appealing. And then the sound you get is very mellow. It's like if the French horn were a fruit, it would be a cantaloupe.
That makes perfect sense. Are there any famous songs or compositions or orchestra, symphony, or any famous symphonies that really feature the brass instruments?
We've got Mozart's Fugue for French horn in D minor, one of my favorites.
Hum a few bars. Can you play it on your French horn?
The French horn's in the shop, so I'll just hum it, but it goes something like this.
Oh, it's like a whole symphony is here.
Yeah.
I would recognize that instantly.
One of,
based on how you just did it.
It's like Flight of the Bumblebee and that song are right up there together. I'm friends with the cello player that's painted on the side of the 110 freeway.
Yo-Yo Ma? Or that woman?
That woman. And, people see her on the 110 freeway and they think, God, she's doing it. She's living the dream. She retired 10 years ago.
But you're still teaching music at community college. Professor Gregory Staph, where can people find you?
You can find me in the music department at Glendale Community College. I do offer one-on-one brass instruction, both there for students at the college and privately. And you can find me on Apple Tunes and Spotify or at my website, Gregory Staph, Let's French.net.
Normally, I like to ask my guest for some sort of parting word to say to our audience, but I'm going to let him play us out instead. Tom, thank you so much for being here. Where can everybody find you?
In real life?
No, but like on the internet?
Oh,
Or if they wanted to follow
come to my house, or find me on all of your social media at Tommy Lenk.
All of it? You have across the board? You have
I've taken all...
The at Tommy Lenks?
Okay, well, I don't really do Twitter anymore. That one's Tom Lenk. But then Instagram and TikTok is Tommy Lenk.
Yeah. Branding.
What else is there? Is there something new I don't know about yet?
I don't know. There's those things like Snapchat, and some people are still on Facebook. But nobody goes on Facebook,
Who
I don't
goes?
think.
What a ghost town.
I don't know. If I post something, nobody responds.
Oh, yeah, I don't go in there. It's too many funerals.
And if you want to see more of the Mysterious Historian, you can go to the.mysterious.historian on TikTok or Mysterious Historian 666 on YouTube. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.